and gentlemen, hello, good morning. Thanks for having me at this conference co-organized by ISOC Sweden chapter and the Swedish Network Users Society. I'm Ceren Unal from Internet Society European Regional Bureau. Today I will be speaking about Internet Society's 2017 Global Internet Report titled Paths to Our Digital Future, which was released on September 19, which was also the 25th birthday of ISOC. For the past 25 years, the Internet Society has been home to a global community of people who believe in a core set of values for a global, open and free Internet. ISOC Sweden chapter is certainly one of the biggest contributors to this rich history. So people believed in these core set of values, and these values for the future is as critical as they were 25 years ago. People always make the assumption that the internet will simply always be there. It will always be on, it will be serving our needs in a rapidly shifting digital world. But the reality begs to differ, so we definitely cannot take the internet for granted. That's why we wanted to have a look at the future and ask our community what are their insights about the future, what are the possibilities that the future holds for the internet of the future. We believe that the key to the future of the internet is to put humanity at the center of tomorrow's internet, to make sure it reaches its full potential as an enabler, as a tool for human, economic and social development. The internet belongs to everyone, and we all have a crucial role to play in shaping its future. So first, a brief background of the report. In 2016, Internet Society initiated an 18-month process of getting perspectives from the global internet community about the key forces of change, which also includes key uncertainties that they believed would drive the future evolution of the internet. We started with first in-depth interviews with internet experts and users around the globe, including high-ranked government officials, ambassadors from various countries, academics, human rights advocates, technical experts, and NGOs. Then we conducted 2 big global surveys and 2 regional surveys that received over 3,000 responses across all stakeholder groups, which represent 160 countries and 94% of ISOC chapters around the globe. So it's quite well covered. We also organized 10 Internet Society community roundtables and a final survey to solicit suggestions for recommendations as to future actions. The main structure of the report is based on 6 drivers of change, which are the key forces of change that will have a profound impact on the future of the internet in the years to come, and the areas of impact, which are the 3 critical features related to the future internet, upon which these drivers of change will have a decisive impact. The report also includes a number of vignettes, fictional future scenarios that provide a sneak peek into how the internet might evolve. I really recommend, regardless of my boring presentation today, the report is quite cool and I strongly recommend you to have a look. The charts are quite interactive. There are lots of videos and these future scenarios are very interesting to read. The report concludes with a series of recommendations informed by our analysis and our community, with the goal of encouraging all stakeholders, activists and influencers to take action. Oh, sorry, I did the typical lawyer kind of preparing PowerPoints. Now everything is on top of another. So from an overall perspective, before getting into details, we have some key findings. First of all, there is a sense of both optimism and disillusionment about the future promise of the internet. Many young people describe the internet as life. There is a risk raised by our community that a security divide might materialize between those with the knowledge and resources to protect themselves from cyber threats and those without. So a security divide between the haves and the have-nots on top of the actual digital divide. AI and Internet of Things will fundamentally change what it means to be online, with far-reaching implications for society and all sectors on the economy. Governments, by themselves, are certainly ill-equipped to respond to the economic and social pressures of IoT and AI, which is just another wake-up call for multi-stakeholder solutions for all kinds of internet governance issues. The rise of nationalism is challenging our basic notions of a global, interconnected internet and threatens to fragment the global internet. Whereas addressing cyber threats should be a priority, we need new thinkings, new approaches and new models urgently, from internet policy to addressing digital divides, from security approaches to economic regulation. Civil society, by the community and all the participants in the surveys, is seen as more important than ever, but it's also established that support to civil society seem to be on decline. Ethics will grow in importance as technical innovation accelerates and impact people's everyday lives, which also results in the need of online social norms to behavior to ensure that people feel confident using the internet. And the internet must remain user-centric, human-centric, to be trusted and for its full potential to be realized. Let's have a look at the drivers. What is a driver? As I said earlier, it is a force of change that will have a profound impact on how the internet will evolve. It includes both trends, which are highly probable developments, and also uncertainties. Here, developments where probability is yet unknown. For instance, if you take AI, investment in AI to increase is a trend, whereas impact of AI on society is an uncertainty. We certainly know that there will be an impact, but we don't know the context yet. What are these drivers? First, we have the internet and the physical world converging. Then we have artificial intelligence, then we have cyber threats, the internet economy, network standards and interoperability, and the role of governments. Together, these drivers present technological, economic, regulatory, security, and network-related challenges for the future internet. And their implications are inevitably tied to one another. For example, the role of governments increases with the rise of cyber threats. The continuous convergence of the digital and the physical world is linked to developments in artificial intelligence, which in turn will have implications for the internet economy. Regulatory responses to the evolving digital economy, as well as the transformation of traditional industries, will have a significant impact on the level of competition in the internet economy. Connectivity, robust and high bandwidth connectivity, will be an important determinant for realizing the full range of opportunities with the Internet of Things. But with the new range of connected devices through the Internet of Things will create new security challenges, including cyber attacks, possibly resulting in physical harm and erosion of trust. So they are quite linked to each other. And if you have a look at the report, these links are shown in a very nice way in moving visuals. So let's have a slightly closer look. Let's start with the fun one, the role of governments. So we fully expect the role of governments in the internet to grow largely due to the rise of cyber attacks and cyber threats. Surprise, surprise. And government policies and structures will be insufficient to keep pace with the technological developments and their impact on security and economy. We also expect roles and responsibilities in the public and private sectors to continue to blur, which will create challenges as to accountability and transparency. With regard to the internet and the physical world colliding, converging, this will fundamentally change what it means to be online. Even take privacy. Privacy was described to be as the right to be let alone. Then we had social media with the regular old-fashioned internet, where the main idea was putting yourself out there. With IoT, we are always on. So the meaning of being online is fundamentally changed, and this change is is not going anywhere, and it's going to get bigger. For IoT to thrive, the security of connected devices must certainly be addressed, because without appropriate safeguards, IoT could drive data collection and use in ways that further undermine privacy and deepen surveillance, which might end up with a surveillance society, was one of the biggest concerns with the global community. There are also some quotes from our participants. My favorite one was one participant from civil society from Europe said, "Winter is coming." That was my personal favorite for obvious reasons. Then we have internet economy. We are on the verge of technological paradigm shift as the digital and physical worlds collide. Those economies and new market leaders who successfully anticipate this paradigm shift will drive innovation and entrepreneurship. Governments, again, will be ill-equipped here to respond to the economic and social pressures of IoT and artificial intelligence. Another big driver of change would be cyber threats. Again, no surprise here. The challenges we have here is, as governments come under pressure to respond to cyber threats, there's a risk, a big risk, that online freedoms and global connectivity will take a backseat to national security. We cannot afford to let the securitization of the internet at the expense of fundamental rights and freedoms, and this was raised by the majority of participants to the survey. There's a new urgent need for new accountability regimes, new incentives, and new liability models to prevent and deal with cyber threats. And a new range of connected devices through the Internet of Things will create new security challenges. When it comes to artificial intelligence, our community stated that artificial intelligence will have a significant impact on the convergence between the digital and the physical world. For example, through smart assistants that allows you to interact with the network through voice control. So online and offline worlds are really colliding. We have ethical considerations to be prioritized in the design and deployment of AI, and there is a high risk that benefits of AI will be unevenly distributed within and across societies, aggravating current and future digital divides. So on top of the security divide, also unevenly distributed artificial intelligence is expected to create a new form of divide. Now we have 3 areas of impact. We have digital divides, we have personal freedoms and rights, and we have media and society. These areas of impact reflect the central concerns of our community and the Internet Society's fundamental belief that the interest of the user and society must remain at the forefront of all Internet-related discussions when it comes to the future of the Internet. The scope and degree of impact in these areas are again highly dependent on the developments among the drivers. And just like the drivers, impact areas are also tied up to another in most cases. If we have a closer look at digital divides, again the new security divide to materialize between those with the knowledge and resources to protect themselves from cyber threats and those without is expected to emerge. Artificial intelligence and IoT will transform the global economy, but without the adequate infrastructure and broader economic opportunity, many nations might be left behind. And we have consolidation of networks and platforms within a few organizations, within a few big organizations, will affect the ability of networks to scale and will limit the ability for new players to enter the market and to emerge. Government measures that may be intended to secure cyberspace will increasingly undermine personal rights and freedoms. Advanced deployment of AI and IoT will result in enormous amounts of data collection that will raise the potential for a surveillance society to emerge. Given the growing pressure from cyber threats and security challenges such as terrorism, the ease with which our open societies and our freedoms and rights could become subordinate to pervasive surveillance regimes facilitated by AI and IoT should not be underestimated as a risk. As cyber threats intensify and as global internet platforms are used to deliberately spread disinformation, users again will lose trust in the internet. On media and society, automation-driven changes will cause considerable anxiety in the short term as people worry about the future of work and succeed in the new economy. If I don't know if any of you, I'm now speaking in one of the most developed nations in the world, but there's always room for development. Internet Society ISOC has this RID meetings, the Regional Internet Development Dialogues, and 2 weeks ago we had one in Brussels. So participants from Europe, EU member states, and not just Europe on a bigger scale, they came together, they discussed the future of work, the impact of AI and machine learning in the job market. So that was very interesting. There might be a recording in the website. I really recommend you to watch it if you haven't done so. It's the Regional Internet Development Dialogues, RID Europe. So in order to succeed in this new ecosystem, they need new skills. The changing media ecosystem is also another concern raised by the community. It is democratizing access to information, while it also raises concerns about the implications of fake news, disinformation, and hate speech. With the data-driven economy, again, the lines between public and private sectors will be blurred, creating challenges for accountability and transparency. In order to address these challenges, and guided by the core values of ISOC, in the heart of ISOC's mission which is the internet must be global, open, and secure, a free and open internet for all, and the decisions about the internet's future must be inclusive and multi-stakeholder. Again, I'm dropping the M word. I know it sounds like saying world peace in a beauty pageant, but it doesn't make it less important. So, with these core values in mind, the objective was coming up with an actually actionable set of recommendations to encourage our community and all stakeholders, including activists and influencers. The question we asked for determining these recommendations was, how do we ensure that the internet of the future is a force for good and creates opportunity and empowers people? These recommendations offer a way forward. So we have 10 things to move forward. First of all, human values must drive technology development and use. We need a public debate. We need a public debate for the society to agree on the ethical standards and norms for the use of emerging technologies. Ethical considerations determined in that way should also be embedded in the design and development of new technologies. And industry should also cooperate and be proactive in incorporating independent ethical reviews into business decisions and emerging technologies. Again, no surprise here, human rights apply online as well as offline. Some governments really need to repeat that a couple of times every day. In this brave new world, in the era of internet shutdowns and censorship spreading around the globe like an epidemic, we must keep the internet on. Just as in the real world, any limitation to human rights online should be the last resort and the exception, and always follow due process of law. Encryption is and should remain an integral part of the design of internet technologies, applications, and services, and should not be seen as a threat to security. We have to strengthen encryption, not weaken it. It is already established that while some governments, some security agencies, intelligence agencies are trying to create encryption backdoors for the sake of security, are actually making the network less secure and more vulnerable to threats. We have to put users' interests first with respect to their own data. This is also a hot topic around Europe and also around the globe due to the extraterritorial effect of the GDPR, which is going to enter into effect in May. So our community came up with, again, no-brainer findings and suggestion of putting the internet, putting the user in the center, a user-centric, a human-centric data protection regime. We have to put users in control of their data, and all users should be able to control how their data is assessed, collected, used, shared, and stored. They should also be able to move their data between services seamlessly. Application and service providers must be transparent about how and why they collect users' personal data, and sensitive data which might cause discrimination should be duly protected. Data minimization practices should be encouraged, and we should insist on selective data collection and only for as long as it's necessary. In order to close the digital divide and in order to prevent more types of divide to occur, we have to act now. We have to recommit to UN Sustainable Development Goals, in particular goal number 9, providing universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by 2020. We already have slightly more than 2 years. Infrastructure development around the globe should be prioritized, including high-speed and wireless, and community-based infrastructure and data centers. A hosting environment for local content, which reduces the cost of transit and allows for cheaper, better, and faster traffic, needs to be created, and we need to equip youth and workers with the right skills and connect local talent to the global economy. Again, this was one of the issues also discussed in Read Europe in Brussels. I was quite surprised. For sure, IoT, AI, machine learning are destroying some kinds of traditional industries, but it's also transforming and creating new jobs. And the more machine learning is used in a society, there was a decline. There was a decline observed in unemployment rates that I found very interesting, because usually people are very scared of losing jobs, and which might happen if they lack the required skills and knowledge. And to prevent the already a couple of times mentioned potential emergence of a security divide, security by design into devices and systems should be incorporated. ISOC will have special projects in the following year according to our new action plan. Our new mission statement and action plan, by the way, was published it's yesterday, US time. We have to make the internet economy work for everyone. Governments and industry need to prioritize skills development and trainings to allow people to keep pace with innovation and its impact on jobs. They must prepare the workforce for the new collar jobs. Users should become creators rather than simply consumers. We need to create an enabling environment for entrepreneurship and empower people to create their own globally competitive startups. Barriers to cross-border data flows should be removed to ensure that everyone has the same opportunity to participate in and benefit from the global internet economy. With the current discussions around, again, due to the rise of nationalism, the whole data localization, this remains a challenge for removing these barriers. And competition policies across the world should be adapted to reflect the complexity of the modern internet economy. In order to tackle cybersecurity challenges, we need to have a collaborative approach, which is again a no-brainer. It's a new take of multi-stakeholderism based on collective responsibility. As the internet is essentially developed as an interconnected, interdependent network of networks, all stakeholders involved are equally responsible to play their roles when it comes to preventing cybersecurity challenges. We need to have online security to be made easier for users. Industry and governments need to invest in the creation of usable tools and information to help users to make informed choices. Corporations and governments also need to adopt a risk management strategy that goes beyond securing infrastructure and incorporates the principles of responsibility, collaboration, and safeguarding of human rights. They must develop best practices to protect their networks from internet threats and protect the internet from vulnerabilities of their own network. Remember WannaCry? And suddenly, the baby cam you bought and you were too lazy to change the default password makes a threat, poses a threat to the whole internet. And without you even realizing, because the cam works perfectly, you can see your baby, you might be clueless. So that's why security by design is, again, a very effective tool. Security professionals must work collaboratively to test product security and disclose any vulnerabilities in a responsible manner. Information sharing is the key. The cost of security failures must be assessed to those who cause the failure and not to the end user. We need new legal and policy frameworks to allow ethical hackers and penetration testers to share information. Which brings us to increase accountability for people who are handling data. We need to create an accountability, including liability provisions, to ensure that those entities that collect, compile, and manipulate data are liable for its abuse and its security. Again, not the users themselves. Develop insurance policies that reward responsible security behavior, and the proper protection of personal data is another suggestion. The roles, responsibilities, and liabilities of those handling data should be clarified. We need to build strong, secure, and resilient networks. Interoperability based on open standards, global reach, and integrity must remain a cornerstone of future network development. Technologists need to promote diversity in networks and services to allow for next generation of products and services to emerge. And we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for the dramatic growth in the number of users and devices. We need to scale bandwidth and IP addressing capability by investing in the underlying network infrastructure, including IPv6, as well as new radio equipment and technologies such as 5G and backhaul fiber. There's a certain need to address online social norms. We have to make sure that the internet is a safe place where people are free from online violence and harassment. Large internet platforms must take greater responsibility to tackle the problems of violence and hate speech online. So we need to revisit the current one-fits-for-all liability regimes when it comes to online content. Multi-stakeholder engagement is the way to develop norms of behavior. And all stakeholders in society, they need to accept responsibility to ensure that internet is not used as a tool to spread hate and fake news. Empowering people to shape their own future is the key message of the report. We need to put the humans in the center. We need to recognize and support the role of civil society and its critical role to protecting and promoting human rights online. Because usually, I've been attending lots of cybersecurity meetings and events, and cybersecurity, this whole securitization of internet governance is a big issue, and usually I'm one of the very few annoying civil society people on the table, and usually more and more people are starting to see cybersecurity as the realm of governments, which is very, very scary. And governments should welcome and support civil society's meaningful participation in domestic internet policymaking. I really look forward to hear your experiences. We were having a chat with Lars yesterday, so I believe there is a new law that might end up with surveillance, and it's a global trend. So this report was never set out to predict the future. It's very hard to predict the future. It can go either way. The main aim of the report was rather listening to the views of those who are part of our global internet community, and ISOC is very well equipped with its diverse and global reach of community. We have chapters, we have individual members all around the globe, and they all participated in this survey. The main aim of the report was to serve as an indicator for the vast range of existing possibilities. The unknowns about technological development and the actions of various stakeholders are all as yet undefined determinants of the internet of tomorrow. By the end of the day, it is completely up to us to change the narrative and shape the future of the internet, and we have to take this very, very seriously. Thanks for your patience. Hope you are not asleep yet, and I would really like to hear your comments and ideas about the future of the internet. Again, being in Sweden, you are more advanced compared to many parts of the world. And I wonder how you see the future. No, thank you very much.
I hope we have some questions. At least I have some reflections and questions. Do you have any from the audience? Okay, then I start. I guess that Patrick have some questions as well. You were talking about building strong, secure, and resilient networks, and many of us here are very. That's really our heart issue. Actually, make sure that we have a strong network in our country and the rest of the world. So what can we as an ISOC-SE, the Swedish chapter, together with SNUS and other of the players here, what can we do actually? What are the action that we need to take? I mean, we strongly agree what you're saying, but then we need some action to make it.
Violently agreeing is
exactly.
It's a big
violently
problem.
Agree, exactly.
No, I believe you have being one of the oldest chapters in Europe, and we have the founding fathers of the Swedish internet here. So we have chapters all around the globe, and especially in the Western world, in Western Europe, we see, since as I said, we have the founding fathers of the internet, they already have quite a big influence of policymakers. The current trend is really scary, especially with regard to security, because governments are taking the lead. I don't know if any of you here was at Eurodig, Tallinn, last June. Yeah, you were there. You were a part of ISOC's cybersecurity panel. So there, on the plenary of cybersecurity in Tallinn, they had this interactive survey that people responded with their phones and laptops. It's a great way to engage the audience to make sure that they're not on Twitter or Facebook. So the question was, which stakeholder should take the lead in cybersecurity internet governance? And guess what happened? The majority of the people coming from all kinds of stakeholders said the government should take the lead. So whereas addressing cyber threats are certainly a part of government's business, government's duty is to protect the safety of their citizens. It is enshrined in constitutions, and nobody is objecting that. But the survey once again showed us the governments are ill-equipped. So we need to have dialogue. And I think in Sweden you have better opportunities than many of the people, because in some countries, I mean, I'm from Turkey, obviously, I'm not naming names, but civil society are not, you might be surprised, but civil society is not always very much welcome in internet-related discussions, internet governance-related discussions. Some governments have no idea what internet governance is. So here you have this distinct advantage compared to many parts of Europe and many parts of the world. So I really look forward to hearing your experiences to that end.
Actually, should be working. Yeah, now it's working. We have another question here. I'm just going to comment that actually we're going to have Anders Hector, who is my former colleague. I was working with him at the government before I came on board on Sunit, which I'm doing now. But he's going to be with us in the afternoon, so that's a good opportunity to.
So even these meetings really serve to this dialogue, because it's not always talk. It's sometimes, if policymakers actually listen, then something good might come out of that. Yeah.
Well, it's more of a reflection.
Yeah, please.
That my personal idea is that cyber surveillance is more or less equal to what corruption does to society. I mean, once you implement it and the power it gives to a person or a group, a company or a government, it will more or less be impossible to remove or eradicate. And what you could see today, that there's more forces to actually wanting to implement, usually with the excuse of terrorism, to put different ways of surveillance on people into the world. And the question is, or the thought is, how are we going actually to well, not stop it, but to limit it? Because I mean, once it's there, you can't take it away.
Yeah,
and it's I mean,
Once it's informed, as you said, it fundamentally changed the very
Yeah.
core
I
of the
mean,
whole process.
in 2018 or 19, they want to, in Sweden, they want to implement to actually start to do surveillance on people in Sweden. And I don't hear anything or anybody trying to say, no, that's maybe not such a good idea. Because once it's there, how are you going to take it away?
Because in most of the people, the public opinion is when you manage to scare people when they feel threatened, they're very surprisingly willing to give up their personal rights and freedoms. And once it's gone, it's really gone, as you said. So it's, and when you come up with the notion of terrorism, it's very easy to convince people and everyday citizens. That's why in shaping the future, that's why I emphasize the need of changing the narrative, because it's all, you can see the internet as a network of threats or a network of opportunities. There are certainly threats posed by the internet. I mean, nobody's objecting that it's not all rainbows and unicorns. The internet, the online world, is just a reflection of the offline world.
I see the future of the internet a bit like the corruption in Africa. I mean, it's more or less impossible to get rid of.
And you get used to it.
And you get used to it. And it's the information surveillance
Yeah.
and data collection that we see today. And we really need to do something about it, I think.
On a European level, I think the situation is slightly more promising with the GDPR entering into force, and the data retention directive is, there will be a new data retention directive. So at least it will have an impact, a positive impact, I hope.
Exactly. We see it, as in my organization, we see this GDPR, I mean, everyone's talking about it, but we see it also as an opportunity to clean up your system, to make sure you have these boundaries and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's not only the boring thing that everybody talks
Yeah, it's that too, but
sexy thing to talk about, but still it's like it's an opportunity to clean up actually your system. That's the way we try to look at it. But I just have another, just raise your hand if you have any questions from the audience, but I have another reflection. As being a chair of the ISOC-SE, the Swedish chapter, I really appreciate when we have actions and what do you say, messages from the global ISOC, so we can actually pick it up and have
the report is, it's over 100 pages, and it's quite fun to read. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I'm a nerd when it comes to long documents, but this one is quite good. And I'm not saying because I'm being paid. That's really one of the coolest texts I read for. And those quotes, like the winter is coming one, is there many more, and they're like fun videos and interviews.
Yeah, I remember, like, I think it was a couple of years ago when Ceren Rose, who was working for ISOC before, she together with, I guess, with a bunch of colleagues of hers, wrote this white paper of IoT, I think it was actually. So, and then we could just picked it up and we sent it out to our members, and we had a local session about that. So that is very good. So I really like the initiatives coming from the global ISOC.
Yes,
So we can pick it up and have a discussion in our environment.
Yeah. There are lots of new policy papers coming up. A new one on IoT privacy is going to come up. A new one on internet shutdowns came up. So I think it's good for developing developing content for chapter websites too.
Yeah, exactly. And I also appreciate we do this mutual. Well, for instance, today we do it together with SNUS, which is a little bit another group, and we have the share of SOF here, the Swedish Operators Forum, who is here as well. So we have a lot of opportunities to do these kind of activities together. So anyway, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions for her? Do you have anything, Patrick? Anyway, thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.